Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Sippy Cohn, and I'm currently the interim clinical director here at Madrigos Midwest. Just a little bit about what goes on here at the clinic. We are currently busy with new intakes every day and continuously supporting our clients with telehealth sessions, and it's actually doing great. So this new forum is working, and people are getting the therapeutic support that they need. And I'm so proud of how far we have come as a community. Our willingness to seek out support and ask for help and make change is so impressive. Tonight, we are so fortunate to continue our parenting series with Mrs. Michal Cohen. Michal is a dear, longtime friend of Madrigos Midwest and has been on Madrigos Midwest's clinical advisory board from its early beginnings. Michal's been an integral part of leading the clinical vision and has facilitated parenting workshops in the past. As a wife, a mother, grandmother, Rebbitzin, social worker, and so much more, Michal is basically a relationship expert. And we're so grateful that she's agreed to talk to us about managing the complexity of relationships under the current constraints of sheltering at home. Before we begin, I just want to let all participants know that they can submit questions during the talk. You don't have to wait until the end. You can use the Q&A at the bottom to give in questions, and hopefully we can include some of that in what Michal discusses and address some of what you want to hear about. All right, Michal, I'm going to give it over to you now.
Okay, thank you so much, Sippy.
Pleasure.
Thank you, everybody from the amazing Madrigos crew. I've loved working with all of you for all these years. You do such amazing work, and you're also so much fun to be with. So it's really my privilege to work with all of you. Okay, so we're here to talk about how to manage in Corona again. I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't want to manage in Corona anymore. I want this to be over, and I don't want to have to do this. And I can't believe anybody really has the time or the energy to listen to another presentation about how we can manage to do what we're doing. Whenever I go for walks with my husband, which is like pretty much the only time I get out these days, and we meet somebody and we say, "Hi, how you doing?" And they say, "I'm doing great." And as soon as we walk away, I look at my husband and I say, "Liars, they are not doing great. It is not possible to be doing great." So my standard answer to the inquiry of how I'm doing is, I'm doing fine, except when I'm losing it, because there are plenty of times when I'm losing it. So I think we all have to cut ourselves some slack here. We're doing something that it's really unprecedented, and nobody taught us how to do this. So we're kind of making this up as we go along. I have a dear friend who lost her husband and left her with 8 children many years ago. And she said to me, "Well, how am I going to do this?" I was like, "I don't know, but you're going to do it. And then you're going to write the book on how to do it." So that's how we're going to do it. We're going to do it, and then we're going to write the book on how to do this. I can't wait to read all those books. I think that they're going to be amazing. So, you know, family relationships, they're tough. They're always tough. I think if I would be doing this with 4 young kids, I do have a feeling that there's one child in particular who I may have strangled by now, which would be such a terrible shame, because this child is such an awesome adult, and I would hate to have strangled this child. But I can't imagine being locked in my house with 4 kids, especially at certain stages of those 4 kids. I personally wouldn't have minded being locked with 4 teenagers, but 4 toddlers, oh my gosh. And I know a lot of people could feel very differently about that. So we're all different in which stages we relish in and which stages we just like, okay, I'm just going to get through this. The bottom line is none of us are the Brady Bunch. The Brady Bunch really only exists perhaps in our fantasies or maybe on social media. I'm not a social media person, but what I hear from other people is the amount of pressure that there is from people posting how perfect their lives are on social media certainly is difficult for all of us. Okay, I'd like to share a little clip right now to kind of explain how I just think it's a really good clip that talks to how we're doing. If there are any men listening, please don't worry. I am not going to put you in a position of hearing something you shouldn't be hearing. You're just going to have to please trust me on this. Okay, so please watch this.
All right, as much of the world continues on in isolation, people working from home, they're trying to figure out things to do with their family, things to figure out how to pass the time. Yeah. Lindsay and Kels, a lot of teachers have been going online and coaches trying to help out their students and their athletes. This one teacher in particular, music teacher, I thought was phenomenal. Not only did she pick up an instrument and decide to help out her student and spread some joy, but she wrote a song, and as inspiration, she was going to share what she's been going through and how it makes her feel while she is in isolation. Have a look.
Hey, so as some of you guys might know, I'm a music teacher, and I found that one of the best ways that I can process the whole transition to online learning and teaching is to write a song. So I wrote a song. I'd like to share that with you guys now. Here we go.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Okay.
That is. I was not expecting that.
His veins, Lindsay and Kelsey, are literally popping out of his forehead.
I was not expecting that at all. No, she looks so sweet and like the little guitar thingy.
I'm a music teacher.
Okay, well, if any of you haven't seen that before, I've seen it a million times, and every time I look at it, I just laugh because it's really good. Okay. One of the way that we manage the complexities of family relationships is by our ability to create some space between ourselves and perhaps a difficult family member. Unfortunately, right now, we really don't have any space. So that makes it extremely challenging. I heard a beautiful vort from Rabbi Shoshan. I think he's from Arizona. I was listening to another seminar, and he had given the introductory remarks, and he said, you know, when we all went to the Beis Hamikdash to be Ola Regel, there were a lot of us in Yerushalayim, and it got really, really crowded. And what it says is that we were omdim tzufufim u'mishtachavim revachim. So we were standing. Tzufufim really means we were floating because we were pressed so tight together that our feet kind of came off the ground, but we were squeezed in very tight. But as we all know, there was this miracle that occurred, and when we bowed, there was a lot of room. And so a thought behind this is that if we're standing and we're going to be stiff and we're going to be rigid about how we're going to interact with one another, we're going to have a really hard time. But if we can bow, if we can be a little flexible in how we're going to do things, then we'll have a much easier time managing when we're in this crowded space. And the more we bowed in the Beis Hamikdash, the more room we had. So when we went fully on the floor, we got even more room. So I think it's a really good message that we need to try to figure out how to be flexible in this very interesting situation that we find ourselves in. Relationships are the stuff of life. The word for life in Hebrew is a plural word. It's chayim. It's plural, even though there are many situations where life is singular. The word is plural, and that's because life is all about relationships. That's what we're doing. We're in relationships all the time, and we're really in 3 different kinds of relationships. We're in a relationship with Hashem, we are in a relationship with ourselves, and we are in a relationship with others. I heard something so beautiful said over in the name of the Maharal, that the 3 cardinal sins that we are told we need to give up our lives instead of violating these sins correspond to these 3 relationships. So we are told to give up our lives if we're asked to serve avodah zarah, idol worship, if we are asked to kill someone, shvichas damim, and if we are asked to be involved in gilui arayos, illicit relations. And the Maharal says that obviously avodah zarah is, if we are involved in that, then we negate our relationship with Hashem. And if we are involved in shvichas damim, if we commit that sin, then we are violating the relationship that we have bein adam l'chavero. And if we are involved in illicit relations, then we violate ourselves. So this talks to how important these 3 relationships are, because these are 3 chataim that we are told to give up our lives for, because our life really depends on these 3 relationships. Just a little bit on the relationship between ourselves and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We know that in our relationship with Hashem, we are told that we always have to be growing. There's no such thing in Yiddishkeit, in Judaism, as standing still. If we're standing still, we're going backwards, because the laws of physics do not allow for standstill. Either we're moving forward or we're going backwards. And so we always have to be growing in our relationship with Hashem. And so clearly now that's what we need to be doing. We need to be growing in our relationship with Hashem. And each one of us has to figure out how to do that. It's not usually about taking on chumras. Really, it's usually about figuring out how to improve on a midah, that on a character trait, because that's really the hardest thing. So that's really what we're looking for. But it's kind of like really interesting. That for us as parents, nobody teaches us how to be parents. For everything in the world, you need a license and you have to take continuing education. But to be a parent, all you have to do is have a baby and you become a parent. It doesn't make any sense. In order to perform shechita, to slaughter an animal, a shochet needs a shtar kabbalah. He needs to have learned and studied and be tested and show that he can do this. Children are certainly a whole lot more important than slaughtering animals. So why is it that we don't need to have some sort of training? And Rav Matisyahu Salomon says in his Sefer, With Hearts Full of Love, he says that every single one of us is imbued with the ability to know what to do as a parent, but we only get that siyata d'shmaya, that help from Hashem to know what to do as a parent, if we are growing as people. So certainly in our relationship with Hashem, we need to be growth oriented, because in order to be good parents, we have to be growth oriented. And in order to pay attention to the relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is obviously the most central relationship in our lives, we need to always be growing. Okay. Next is the relationship with ourselves. And we tend to let that slide, unfortunately, because it's the easiest one to let slide. And so, when there's a lot going on, and right now there's more than a lot going on. Right now, parents are being asked to be everything. And it's not possible to be everything, but we're being asked to be everything. Mothers are being asked to not only take care of their children and make sure that they are fed and clothed. Now they have to do the laundry also, and they have to do all the cleaning, and they have to be the teachers, and all the other millions of things that parents have to do right now. And it's a tall order. It's like almost impossible, and it is impossible. And we have to find a way not to do it all. But we need to take care of ourselves, because if I'm no good to me, I'm no good for anybody. That is the absolute rule. In Einani Limili, we know that from Yiddishkeit. We have to take care of ourselves first. And it's really easy to let that go and drop that ball, but we can't. We cannot drop that ball. When we're juggling, we have to figure out which balls are rubber and they can fall on the floor and they will bounce a little and fall off into the corner and collect some dust, but we'll pick them up eventually. But some of the balls are made out of glass, and if we let them fall to the floor, they will splatter. And really hard to put glass back together again, though it can be reblown and be put back together again, but it's really hard. So we need to take care of ourselves. We need to find time for ourselves. We need to figure out how to do some exercise. We need to figure out how to chill. We just need to figure out how to take care of ourselves. And I know you're all thinking, yeah, great, you don't have a bunch of kids at home, so you can take care of yourself. I know, I don't have a bunch of kids at home. And those amazing grandchildren that I used to have in my house all the time, that I'm hoping very soon to have again, are with their parents, and I don't even get to help out over there right now. So I get it. I know that it's really almost impossible, but we have to. We have to. When you throw a rock into water, there are ripples that are made from that rock. The heavier the rock, the stronger the ripples. And also, the strongest ripple will be the one that's right near the rock. And the ripples will get weaker and weaker as the ripple itself will get weaker and weaker as it goes further and further. So the stronger we are, the stronger ripple we make. And who are the people who are affected most? Those are the people closest to us. Those are those kids and our spouses and our parents and all the other people that we want to be taking care of. So we really need to figure out how to keep ourselves strong as we go through this really incredibly challenging period. Okay, the next is our relationship with others, which is probably the most stressful part right now. When we're living with people in close quarters and not getting any breaks, there's no question that the normal annoyances of people are going to feel stronger and stronger and more annoying. And we all live with annoying people, whether that annoying person is ourselves or any other family member. We all live with annoying people. And it's not likely that the things that are annoying us or generally annoy us are going to get easier. They're going to get harder because they're there all the time. And so we really need to figure out how to look away from some of these things because we're not going to be able to change them. We all know that there's only one person we can change, and that is ourselves. We have no capacity to change anybody else. I'd like you to try a little exercise with me. It's quick. I want you to fold your hands. Just this kind of fold, and notice, how do you fold your hands? Okay? So when I fold my hands, my left hand goes over my right hand, and my right hand is up here, but my left hand is tucked here. So just notice how you do that. Fold your hands and notice how you do it. Okay, now unfold them and do it the other way. So for me, that would mean that my right hand is going to go on top now, and this is going to tuck, and this is going to come up. Ugh, I cannot do that. This is what I want to do. I don't want to do that. It's awkward, and I don't know how to do it. You know, if we can't even manage to change how we fold our hands, um, we know how challenging it is to change. We can't change the other person. There's no way we're going to do that. The only one we can change is ourselves. And what we want to try to change is our reaction to the people who are challenging us. There was a study done in the Cleveland Clinic that says that your typical normal person has between 20 to 60,000 automatic thoughts in a day. 20 to 60,000. That's unbelievable. That is so much chatter in our brains going off all the time. And 80% of those thoughts are negative and repetitive. You know, when I was first studying cognitive behavioral therapy, talks a lot about our thoughts, and I was, being trained to notice my thoughts. I noticed that I called myself an idiot way too many times in a day. When I couldn't find this, oh, such an idiot, or when I, whatever it was, I was calling myself an idiot. I don't even think I'm an idiot. Why was I telling myself so many times a day that I was an idiot? Because it's just an automatic thought, and it was negative and it was repetitive. So what we need to try to do is to notice our thoughts. Thoughts like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot go through another day like this. This is never going to end. I am not going to be able to survive with this child, spouse, whoever it is. Those are negative thoughts. What we need to remember about those automatic thoughts is they are not facts. They are simply thoughts. They're thoughts. And we need to be able to recognize them and then notice what they do to us. Now, generally, what a thought will do to us is it will bring up an emotion. And there are really three different states of our emotions. The first one is comfortable. I am sitting on the couch, I'm eating a popsicle, I'm reading a book, nothing's challenging me, I'm just comfortable. Okay, that's emotional state number one. Emotional state number two is I'm being challenged. Something's going on, it's making me anxious, or it's making me angry, or it's just upsetting me in whatever way, but I can stay focused, I can be present, I can figure out how I want to respond. And the third state is too much. I am in a state where it's overload, I cannot think, I'm going into automatic pilot. That's the dangerous place to be. We want to try to figure out how to stay in that middle zone, because in the middle zone, that's where growth takes place. There's this new phrase that's been coined, post-traumatic growth, as opposed to post-traumatic stress. It's when can we take the difficult things that happen in life and use those to grow? Well, we can only do that when the thinking part of our brain is operational. It's funny, we all hear the expression first responders nowadays. We don't hear first reactors. That's not what they're doing. They are first responders, because the difference between reacting and responding is reacting is a gut reaction. We just do it. Responding is I stop and I think and I try to decide what my choices are, and I stay very present, and then I respond. I don't react, I respond. I mean, that's what we're hoping our first responders are doing, right? We don't want them to just shoot from the hip. We want them to think, okay, what does this person need right now? And how am I going to respond to this? the part of the brain that allows us to just react quickly, called the amygdala, is a primitive part of the brain. And when there's a stressor and we don't have time to stop and react, and we don't allow ourselves to think, then the amygdala just does what it's wired to do. And very often it's not a very good response. When we can stop and we can look at our thought and say, okay, that's just a thought. It's not a fact. Label it as whatever it is. Okay, that's my anxiety. That's my fear. And then we can say, okay, what are my choices here? How do I want to respond to this? That's the place that we want to be in. And when we're trying to deal with, relationships in these close quarters, that's the place that we want to be. And we all have our hot buttons, the things that stir us. And the way that we can manage those hot buttons is by knowing what they are. We call them emotional allergies. So it's something that I'm sensitive to, just like any food allergy. I have a sensitivity to it. I will share with you one of my emotional allergies, which I discovered probably like 25 years ago. I was driving in Evanston. I needed to make a right turn. I put on the signal. I went over 2 lanes and I made my turn, and I got pulled over by a cop. I rolled down my window. He said, you went 2 lanes over and then made a turn. I was like, I know, didn't I signal? He's like, yeah, you signaled, but you're not allowed to do that. I was like, I'm not. He's like, no, you can't go 1 lane to the next lane and then turn. I was like, oh my gosh, officer, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. He's like, okay, I'll just give you a warning. Okay. Baruch Hashem. So he asked me for my license and my registration and my insurance, and I give it all to him. And then he looks at it all and he says, your insurance expired yesterday. I was like, no, it didn't. We have the same insurance. He's like, well, this card says it expired yesterday. And I was like, it's because I'm not driving my car. I'm driving someone else's car. I won't tell you whose. And he said, I'm really sorry, but it's your responsibility to make sure that you have an updated insurance card. I was like, okay. They said, so I'm going to have to give you a ticket, and you're going to have to go down, and you won't have to pay. Just present the new card. I was like, okay, so I'm going to send the person who belongs to this car. And they're like, no, you can't. You have to go. I was like, well, that's not fair. There's an updated insurance card in my car, just not in this car, even though I gave it to that person, but they didn't put it in. He's like, sorry. He goes to write me the ticket, and I start crying. It's like, oh my gosh. Of course, I don't want him to know that I'm crying because, it's really embarrassing. But I'm a dead giveaway. If I'm crying, you can tell I'm crying. He comes back. I roll down the window. He looks at me. He's like, why are you crying? I didn't yell at you. I was like, I don't know why I'm crying. Okay. I said, you were very nice. I'm not blaming you. And he gives me the ticket, and I roll up the window, and I changed the name here. But I was like, oh, Miss Weisberg. It was unbelievable. I had a flashback to 3rd grade. When I was in 3rd grade, the teacher was absent, and everyone was making a ruckus. And I had a little bit of a big mouth. I went over to the window, and I saw the principal was coming. And I got up in front of the class, and I yelled, quiet, quiet, she's coming, we're going to be in trouble. And just as I'm screaming in front of the class, in she walks, and she's like, you're the troublemaker. And I'm trying to explain that I was not the troublemaker. I was the one trying to fix the situation. And she insisted that I pack up my bags and go sit in the 2nd grade for the day. And my parents had to bring me back the next day because I was the bad one. And I can remember to this day, I was probably, how old was I at that time? I was, if I was in 3rd grade, so what, I was 8 or 9, I was 9. We're talking over 50 years ago. I remember the feeling of dread and packing up my books very slowly so I wouldn't get to the 2nd grade. I don't remember being in the 2nd grade, but I remember that. And I remember another incident with this principal. And I realized that my hot button, my emotional allergy, is being accused of doing something that I did not do. And so it was an amazing revelation to me. I was like, wow, I am so sensitive to this. But now I know that. And so when someone thinks I did something that I know I didn't do, instead of flying off the handle and biting their head off as if they were this principal, I can like calm myself down. I can get into a place where I can actually stop and think and make a choice and talk about what's going on. So I think it's really important if we can figure those things out. We can really only figure them out by ourselves when we notice that we're having a reaction that's much stronger than what's actually going on at the moment. That's a time that we can stop ourselves and say, okay, what's going on here? Why am I so upset right now? Okay. So bottom line is, when we're dealing with our kids and they're certainly going to spark all kinds of reactions in us, we need to really stop and think about those. Anxiety is probably the number one emotion right now. And even if we're not anxious, someone in our house is anxious because there's so much anxiety. And anxiety is really a very normal reaction to a very abnormal situation that we all find ourselves in. And so, we need to be able to stop and think and just know that whatever we're thinking is not a fact and that we can figure out how to get through this. I think it's really, really important that when we're living this way, that we remember to keep doing our own routine, that we don't get ourselves lost in what everyone else is doing, that we really encourage alone time for everybody, that everyone can have some time. It doesn't have to be family togetherness all the time. Create nooks for the kids where they can just be themselves. And work hard to talk to the kids. I know that some people suggest if there's something difficult to talk about that you could text. I don't think that's a great idea, and it's not just me. The studies show that the parts of the brain that light up when we're understanding come from talking. We need to talk. Texting doesn't work. So if there's something complicated going on, we need to talk to our kids. Our kids are bombarded by so much information. There is this incredible analogy of the frog in a beaker. If you take a frog and you put it in a beaker of boiling hot water, it will jump out. It knows, I'm in hot water, I'm getting out of here. If you take that same frog and you put it in a beaker of lukewarm water and you slowly heat up that water, the frog will boil to death. It has no way to feel those little incremental rises in temperature. Our children are bombarded constantly by all kinds of images and messages, and we run the risk of there being frogs in a beaker. So we need to talk to them. We need to allow them to feel what they're feeling, help them through it. Most importantly, just allow them to feel what they're feeling. So I want to stop and see if there are any questions. I see there are a few.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much. I know that you had said that I can pop on and interrupt with questions, but I could not bring myself to because you were just so amazing to listen to. I want to say that for me, what makes you so effective is how genuine and real you're willing to be with us. When you're real with us, you give us permission to be real with ourselves and to accept our real selves. So thank you so much for that gift. We do have some questions. Hang on, I'm going to just pull them up. All right. So, question is, I need an escape sometimes, but there's nowhere to go to. How can I escape from my family during stay at home?
Okay, well, I assume you have a car and you know how to drive. Get in the car, go park near the water, and if you like water, I love water, or go park near anything that you like and get away and give yourself permission to do that regularly. We all need to do that. So by all means, or lock yourself in your bedroom. I hope you have a lock on your bedroom door. We all need locks on our bedroom doors. And give yourself place. Turn on a fan so that you can hear everything else that's going on around you, and find that space for yourself, please.
Yeah, it just takes a little more creativity, I guess, to find those options, but they're there. Okay, let's say that the annoying person's way of speech and actions are ruining the entire dynamic of the household that I'm working so hard on to make pleasant. If we can't change others, how do we help the situation?
Well, I think in that circumstance, the best way to help it is not to put so much emphasis on that annoying person, and just let that go for the time being. Emphasize the good behavior in the others and the good behavior in that person whenever they have it. And really try to let go whatever behaviors you normally don't let go, because you don't want that to destroy the dynamic that's going on in the rest of the house that's really working well. So don't give that permission. Don't give that person the permission to destroy that. I know that's not always so easy to do, because sometimes what they're doing can be really, really difficult. Sometimes we can just separate ourselves from that person and take some kids into another room and, just go do what we need to do and let that person just do what they need to do as long as it's safe. But we need to find a space away from them.
Okay. All right. As I ask questions, I want to make sure that all our listeners know that they can submit, and I see them coming in. Great. Okay, I'm going to interrupt with one more question here now about, I know that I guess you probably addressed this with the connection between the thoughts and the feelings, but I really find that I start off the day with my thoughts in the right place, and I end off the day with my thoughts in the wrong place.
It takes a lot of training. It really does. Because we have between 20 to 60,000 thoughts in a day, most of them being negative and repetitive, we really have to train ourselves to notice the thoughts that are not helpful. One way to do that is to actually ask ourselves, how useful is this thought to me? Because sometimes when we tell people, notice the thought, is it true? They say, yeah, it's true. Well, sometimes it's true, but it's not useful. There's no utility in that thought. It's not helping us at all. And so I think it takes a lot of practice. It's not something that we do naturally. One of the ways to do it is to, I know this sounds really dorky, but to practice mindfulness, to really find a way to stay present. And we don't have to be sitting in some, ashram to practice mindfulness. All we need to do is plant our feet on the ground and feel our feet so that we know we're here. Anxiety is never about the present. It's about the future, and it's about the past. In the present, I'm fine right now. I'm worried about what's going to be, or I'm worried about what was. But when we can plant ourselves in the present, we do so much better. So the only way to really help ourselves with that is to practice and really learn how to look at our thoughts. And it takes a lot of work. It takes a ton of work. Like everything good in life takes a lot of work.
Yeah, because change doesn't happen as like when we get inspired. It happens with a lot of work.
It happens with a lot of work.
Okay, one more we have time for. So I know you pointed out that not everybody else is the Brady Bunch, even though they make themselves look like it. I'm having a harder time than ever with not comparing myself to others. I think this is because of the social media. There's like a lot of details: Instagram, social media, Facebook, etc. Ways of connecting that I feel like I need, since I don't have the other ways of socializing. Problem is that I keep comparing myself to others, and it's just making me miserable.
Well, if it's making you miserable, you need to stop doing it. You know, Dr. Abraham Tversky always says, I don't know if this is his quote or he got it from somewhere else, but insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, even though it doesn't work. So we do ourselves a tremendous disservice when we compare ourselves to others, because everybody's different. Nobody has what I have. They have it in different amounts and they have different things. And what I do in a day is just not comparable to what somebody else does in a day, because we are all so different. Just like every one of us have different faces. We all have different backgrounds and emotions and feelings. You know, these new emojis where you can, you know, make yourself, they're so limited because, you know, they just give you, you know, a couple eyes and skin color and hair and everyone kind of looks the same. That's not a human being. We all look so different. It's amazing. There are billions of us, and each one of us has 2 eyes and a nose and a mouth and cheeks and hair and a chin, and we all look different, except for identical twins. We all look different. So we're all different. So we really, really need to work hard not to compare ourselves.
Okay, here's another good one that I'm wondering if you can help us with. I know that it's important for me to spend time with my husband and nurture that relationship, but I have little kids at home, can't get a babysitter, and can't figure out ways for us to connect. It's been like 9 weeks since we really spent time together as a couple.
Yeah, dangerous, really, really dangerous. You know, kids do best in an environment where they know how well their parents are doing together. That's one of the #1 predictors of how well our children are going to do in this world, how healthy they'll be, not just emotionally, but even physically, who they'll marry. It's all about what they're seeing. And so, yes, I certainly understand that it's really, really hard to find time to be with each other, but we need to. And so the kids need to go to bed. And even if you have teenagers, they can hear that after a certain time, they need to be in their rooms and they cannot be in whatever space we want to be in. And we need to figure out what works for us, whether it's playing a game together, doing a puzzle together. I mean, we can be creative and find things. We need to connect every single day for at least 15 minutes. We need to find some time. And I know it's really tough, but we need to. You know, when the Torah talks about the Ben Sorah Morah, he says, the Torah says, Eino Shomea L'Kol Aviv Imo, that he doesn't listen to the voice of his mother and father. One voice. He's only culpable if his parents have one voice. If he has parents who aren't together and seeing eye to eye, he is not responsible for whatever he did wrong. We need to really, really work hard on this and find time for each other. Taking care of our relationship with our spouse is a glass ball. It's not one of those balls we can drop. It's absolutely a glass ball. So let's work hard on that.
Okay, thank you for that encouragement. I could listen to you all day and night. And the good thing is that a recording of this lecture is going to be up on the Madrigas website. It always helps me to be able to listen to something again the first time I enjoy it, and I need to hear it again to process it. So it is up on our website. You can listen again. You can share it with other people. I want to thank you again, Michal, for helping us all feel so understood and for giving us perspective on being with ourselves, with Hashem, and with the people in our lives. We're so, so grateful to you for your time, your wisdom, and your experience. I also want to let listeners know that we will continue our series in 2 weeks with Zahava Farbman at 8:00 p.m. on June 2nd. She will address coping with the various forms of loss and disappointment. People, events, plans, etc. Information about our continuing series will be available to you very soon. Thank you all for joining us and have a good night.
Okay, thank you everybody. Hatzlacha Rabba as we are makabel the Torah next week. Nothing more important for the transmission of the Torah than the family. The family is what keeps us going. So Hatzlacha Rabba to everybody in your incredible avodas hakodesh.